Do not obey. Zombie talk. I've seen some things you cannot explain.
Super interesting theory explains how the creators of The Simpsons are able to predict the future. We need to talk about this. Okay, so before we get to The Simpsons, let's talk about Project Looking Glass. So back in 2006, Dr. Dan Burch confessed that he was a part of Project Looking Glass, a secret project by the government to try and find technology to see the future. So according to him, the government stole something called the Yellow Cube from this temple in Egypt. Now in ancient Egypt, this temple was known to Egyptians as a place where rulers went to see the future. Now apparently they were able to see the future through the Yellow Cube, which the government stole. Now the government used this cube to look into the future and try to prevent events from happening, but they saw a future in which the world was destroyed because they looked into the cube, if that makes sense, so they allegedly got rid of it. But y'all, many people suspect that Matt Groening was a part of Project Looking Glass. For one, he grew up really close to the town Looking Glass where allegedly this took place. But the theory goes that he actually stole the Yellow Cube and is using it to look into the future to add Easter eggs to The Simpsons. For example, he literally included the equation to the Higgs boson particle 2 years before it was discovered. Matt Groening, I'm on to you, sis, and that is today's conspiracy.
Level of secrecy and secret facilities and the capabilities of our nationally kept secrets would shatter most people's imagination of what is possible.
Are you aware of what happened to the Yellow Cube and how it was used and so on?
I believe that the Yellow Cube still exists.
Okay, well that coincides with the testimony we got.
The Yellow Cube or the Yellow Book would give you your possible future.
Yes.
So it took basically the choices that you would inherently make along a timeline and tell you what that timeline would be, given that you made all the choices that your brain would make.
Well, this is exactly what I was just going to ask you. What we were told is that leaders of governments and so on, people in high places, politically, would use this to try to see their most optimum future and then follow those. So they were using it to enhance their wealth, et cetera,
Yep.
in a very egotistical way.
All of this information that is currently held secret and classified is actually real.
Term it that they actually had to use it through an intuitive who had a high vibration, had to be in the vicinity to, in a sense, be the go-between between the person who wanted to use the cube
Right.
and the cube itself, because normally they didn't have the vibration necessary.
Correct. And that is a process that would prevent anomalies from popping out in predictions.
But it wouldn't completely.
No, and I'll tell you why. If it was used properly by somebody that knew how to use it and could eliminate their thought process from the machine's effective use, it would be very easy to get an exact, what future holds. However, anybody that has that ability would inherently know that that information could not be given and would be protected. And that inherent notion would inject something into the Yellow Cube or the Yellow Book that would give an inaccurate statement. Just by the person that's using its intuition saying, if I tell the truth, it'll be bad. So the higher levels pick up on that, throw out a different scenario that isn't the truth.
It's in a sense the feedback loop gets dirtied somewhere along the line by exposure.
And that's why those pieces of technology should have never been used by humanity in its current level of understanding. Because for all intents and purposes, the technology doesn't work right when we use it.
Right, I totally get that. Okay, so to get back to...
What does she mean? Okay, what does that mean that it doesn't totally work when we use it? Because I don't believe all of us are the same we, okay? 2, it kind of reminds me of that movie, I cannot remember, where they predict future crimes, and there was a glitch in the system, and the dude that worked for the people got set up by the system, or somebody set him up. Kind of reminds me of this. My thing is, it was found in Egypt, in Africa, the place that people want to not really talk about, that is really bigger than everything that's going on in life. It's like Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, and damn Indiana Jones. Y'all understand what I'm saying? This shit is real, and they have this technology. They don't know how to use it. They do know how to use it, but they're not spiritually inclined to use it. Oh, that pisses me off.
The biggest cherry on top of all this conversation would be a synopsis to say that if I could convince everybody out there that for all intents and purposes, what we believe to be true eventually becomes true. If somebody convinces us that a major disaster is going to happen in the very near future, a major disaster.
And I think this is how they are predicting these major disasters, these storms that, for those who control the weather, for one controls the world. We already know about all that. We know that. But to take that machine on top of the cube, what if the cube is just a bigger version of the machine? Or just, it can still be two separate things. I'm sorry, y'all. My brain is just, I'm just downloading, dude. Like, brainstorming like a mofo. Anyways, I'm sorry. But this shit deep. This shit deep. I've been wanting to talk about this shit. It's deep. Okay.
One of the caveats that I do have some personal information that I did get personally involved in was some information that had to do with the Stargates and Looking Glass, and more specifically the 2012 problem with those projects. The popular opinion of what's out there right now is that the project was shut down because there was a problem when we approached 2012. I've heard it described in a number of ways, but to my knowledge, the problem is that the timelines converge on that point in time. And when you know enough about the Stargate projects and the Looking Glass project to know how string theory works and how the possibility of possibilities works and how making one choice over here doesn't necessarily mean that the other choice couldn't exist at the same time. But once you get your brain wrapped around this subject, you find out that at the end of 2012, in an easy way to put it, the choices that we make become less and less consequential to the future. And eventually we're pushed into this bottleneck of time, no matter which choice we make. And that's
But if you can control so-called time, which they do in a sense, but they kind of don't, but they can reset it. They can reset the things that they did, fix their futures when they mess it up. It's like DOAing somebody, resetting everything, skipping that the next time, and doing it different. Like, they're getting all these second, third, fourth, fifth, how they say you only live once, YOLO. That is not true, everybody. Wake up. Hello.
It's important to the people that had access to Looking Glass because they would use Looking Glass knowing the choices that they would make and the future would pop up. The big mistake was coming up with the possibility of future. And when we started using a computer to say, well, if we make this choice, it's 79% possible that this scenario happens, and 23% are possible, or whatever, using round numbers, that this scenario would happen. The understanding at the time was that was realistic. However, if you go down the road further and free will continues to exercise itself on this game, that 79% possibility sometimes changes very, very fast. But if you look at the situation in a point of time, it seems very realistic that that's the greatest possibility.
Just like that movie. If y'all want to see the rest of this, That's the TikTok, you know, if it's still up in the future.
Or nationally kept secrets would shatter most people's imagination of what is possible.
This is probably one of the more well-known black-budget time travel projects, with the exception of the Montauk Project. Many whistleblowers have said that the program was not actually shut down, but just classified into deep black.
The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game, and nothing could be manipulated beyond that point.
According to the alleged insiders, the Looking Glass technology was apparently used to look backward and forward in time, using the consciousness of an operator as a type of steering mechanism. The operator would sit in a chair that was apparently recovered from a downed extraterrestrial craft capable of interfacing with consciousness directly. When the device was turned on, strong toroidal fields of energy cycled about a pouch of water at the center, which acted as a sort of resonator for in-streaming energies from the point of focus maintained by the operator. The data was collected and projected onto video monitors at incredible speeds, which later needed to be de-interlaced to reveal discernible images. What's interesting is that the biases of the operator would have a direct effect on the images collected. For example, if one were to look back to the time of Jesus' crucifixion, if the person doing so was an atheist, they may not see anything at all. But if the person was a Christian, they may see the infamous crucifixion event. This is suggestive of a time-space mechanic in the universe, wherein the human mind is able to navigate through time itself. The work of Dewey B. Larson and his reciprocal systems theory provides the basis for this interpretation. Briefly, as described by Larson, the universe is broken up into two physical regions, as defined by motion. Below the speed of light, motion operates in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. Above the speed of light, motion operates in 1 dimension of space and 3 dimensions of time. As bizarre as that sounds, the mind is uniquely equipped to navigate in time, which is able to access memories of the past, gain awareness of events in the present, conceive of future possibilities, and even imagine alternative events that did not actually happen.
Fox, you could only record an event by thinking of it. Now, theoretically, we believe we can take a videotape magnetic camera into the time zone and photograph Lincoln's Gettysburg Address or Caesar's armies marching or anything that's ever happened.
All right, let me get this straight. In other words, you're telling me, like H.G. Wells imagined 50 years ago, that everything that happened in time is still there to be seen by the recreation electronically of a thought which exists.
Jack, you know how you talk into a tape on a tape recorder and play the interruptions back, identical to the play that you made. The Earth's magnetic field is the same way. You can put interruptions into it and play them back out of it. And associate.
And that's how you can create natural disasters, earthquakes, sinkholes. And I know everybody says, yeah, they've lied to us. We've been born into a lie constantly. We just keep forgetting. But we all keep doing this over and over and over again. Most of us are stuck. I promise you. I do not want to come back again. This system is effed. Now, if the system is better, reincarnate me forever. But I refuse to keep reincarnating into hell. Baby.
Of ours in creating a magnetic coupler with this principle, coupled in the Earth's magnetic field and played back TV shows from stations that aren't even in business anymore.
You mean an experiment has been done to bring out of the air television programs which have been and gone?
Been and gone.
Now, where was this experiment conducted?
It was conducted in Santa Monica by an associate of mine.
Why hasn't this hit the headlines throughout the world? That's a time machine in action. If I can...
Jack, the reason it hasn't hit the world is because, as I understand it now, the Navy Department took him and the research over because he also discovered he could bounce magnetic echoes off the ionosphere and locate submarines under the ocean, regardless of where they were. So,
who is this associate of yours?
this is a fellow named Charlie Arts.
Charlie Arts?
Yeah.
And is he a free man walking around today?
Well, he's free where he is.
He is free where he is in this what? Allegedly, you know, there's probably more to it. If I find it, I will definitely put it in. But is allegedly probably free where? In the facility that he's held captive in? Just like, let me hush, I was about to say something.
Late 2030, all of the above has occurred. It is unknown why the Looking Glass did not show anything past late 2030. The positive event is nearly a polar opposite outcome. The vaccinations are mostly prevented, and new cures are created to save those who were already vaccinated. Those who are pure of blood go outside during the cosmic event, and receive cosmic particles that upgrade their DNA and extradimensional vibratory signature. Within weeks, they gain a youthful appearance, psychic abilities and enchanted physical and cognitive function. This happens to billions of people. The power structure, at this point, is so weakened they are not able to complete research on their vaccine enhancement shot. They also receive this cosmic upgrade, but due to their existing negative energies, it is not absorbed as well. Only with the vaccine enhancement shot did they have any chance of receive its full benefits. The Looking Glass data also showed them this, so they worked hard on the vaccine enhancement shot, so they could not only receive the benefits of the cosmic event, but upgrade those benefits, just for themselves. On the positive timeline, they do not have enough money or power to complete this research. The cosmic event only gives them small benefits, and they are left mostly homeless, to beg on the streets. Humanity does not take revenge on them, but instead, humanity takes pity on them, and there are groups that offer them some food and shelter. As we can see, we face two outcomes, and great challenges. We hope this video offers some insight for you. It is only a small piece of data that we will share into the future.
And look right here, Mustard Seed Creations say, but at the time of the cosmic event, can you stand in the sun without harm? Hence, Bill Gates blocking the sun. Allegedly, it's gonna be, you know, baby.
Some of you might know me because of a story I broke last March concerning something called the Guardians of the Looking Glass. Basically, what we had here is a technology that was built which would give those people who operated that technology, of course, a huge advantage because they could see and view timelines within a stream, within a field. You know, the awareness of this technology came to us through certain whistleblowers, and one of them was a guy by the name of Dan Burish, who went into some detail about how that technology was acquired. It starts at the end of the Second World War. It was the first time that the United States ever came into contact with certain ETs, you could say, who began appearing over the skies of the United States. And their appearance, again, was accompanied by crashes and captures of both the craft and the pilots piloting that craft. And it leads directly to the formation of the breakaway civilization, that which was created by one ultra secret society that was called Majestic 12. They who have ultimately come into possession of the Looking Glass material and time travel and other technologies ever since. So between 1947 and the early 50s, there were a series of crashes that took place, not just one, and they started the whole back engineering process. And they also had captured extraterrestrial beings. and the Looking Glass has ended up in S4 Area 51.
The program out at Area S4 consisted of 3 projects: Project Galileo, Project Sidekick, and Project Looking Glass. Project Galileo dealt with gravity propulsion. Project Sidekick dealt with a beam weapon that had a neutron source and was focused by a gravity lens. Project Looking Glass dealt with the physics of seeing back in time.
What they really discovered, in principle, is that the ETs are not really truly ETs. They are us from the future. They called them J-rods.
A long period of introduction into meeting, say an EVE, an alien. I call him J-Rod, of course that's what they called him, but that wasn't his, I don't know if that was his real name or not. That's the name that the linguist gave him. So he knew J-Rod.
Came from Zeta Reticuli, which is what we are going to colonize in the future. And they traveled back 52,000 and 45,000 years respectively.
State planet of origin? Okay, yesterday you told us you traveled, and I quote, thousands of light years to get here. So you're human.
To exactly before this event takes place, for different reasons. What they found was that there are 3 types of beings. There's 2 J-rods, which were called P-52s. The P-52s were for 52,000 years in the future, and the P-45s were from 45,000 years in the future. And the P-45s weren't interested in helping us. They were just here to harvest genetic materials which they had lost over the course of tens of thousands of years of exposure. The P-52s also returned because they came back and they were trying to tell us our consciousness can affect our timeline. Not just the timeline, but also cosmic events. They were trying to tell us that the cosmic event, which is about to happen, can be affected by our collective consciousness. It's going to play out in 2 ways. It could end up with a timeline that prevails that's an organic timeline, where mankind will begin to wake up and en masse, and that we will change the trajectory of that course by raising our consciousness, and then there's going to be some event, and our change in consciousness will actually set in motion a positive version of how that event affects us. We've heard about ancient civilizations like Atlantis or Lemuria or Mu, and they come and go. They always seem to end in some huge cataclysm or some destruction, some destructive event happens, society blows up. It's like a loop. Eventually it would have to crack that loop. So maybe here is the chance to actually break that loop. And the other timeline they were talking about that may prevail is this transhumanist timeline. Along comes 2022, and it's been like 10 years since the last Looking Glass whistleblowers had been out there talking about it, Dan Bush and a few others. But this suddenly appeared, this group calling themselves the Guardians of the Looking Glass. We are the Guardians of the Looking Glass. We're a group of former intelligence officers and military officials who have come together to release classified information about future events to come. Our knowledge comes from our work on the Looking Glass artifact, first discovered in Iraq. During this time, the artifact was activated by the U.S. military and connected to computers. We were able to see dozens of future timelines and the convergent singularities that led to 2 possible outcomes by the year 2030. In one outcome, humanity awakens, and the current order is dismantled, and an event occurs, and instead of this event being negative, it is a positive one. In the other outcome, the current structure remains in place, a nuclear war takes place along with many horrible events, then the event occurs, and instead of being a positive event, it's a negative one. I'm going to talk about what we can do about it, if timeline. We have opportunity here. The J-rods, they told us that basically they were talking about these 2 primary timelines. That there is a future where a possibly pole shift related environmental catastrophe is averted and does not happen. And relative to this different timeline, the future that generated the J-rods as we know them will never evolve from our own, and we have taken a new path. So in this timeline, which also the Guardians saw, there is a probability of that happening. And so they talk about that as well. If the post-global pole shift environmental catastrophe does not occur, the benefits could be to alternatively produce a human consciousness, liberating evolutionary leapfrog, and a level of enlightenment among the masses that will produce a new set of future timeline trajectories that will compassionately steer the course of humanity into a virgin future of untold beneficial futures and heights, and in fact fulfill the original evolutionary directive to evolve consciousness of humanity to its optimum potential as future creative agencies in the universe. These messages that we got from these J-Rods decades ago are trying to reinforce that idea, and now we're starting to, maybe the reason this came up now is because we're kind of at that last moment where we could make it happen.
All right, well, I hope you guys did kind of get the gist or getting what I'm trying to put together. This is the best I can explain it. I'm more of a visual person, okay, with pictures, honey, and people talking, but I like the different breakdowns of different people. They're kind of saying the same thing, but there's different information coming out. Just take heed, do some research. You know, I'm going to always continue to dig deep into this stuff. But whenever I can come and out and find some new compilations or just anything to add to certain things I've already talked about, I will continue to do that. But I hope you guys did enjoy this video. And like I always say, do not obey. Stay woke. Peace.